I won't forget to turn on the recording, and I think I did. We will know later if it works. Let's dive into it and talk about why software updates. Why we as software producers want to give our users updated software. And I guess it all goes down to users. And those users want features. And they want those features now. Right? Personal story, I personally and a bunch of my friends actually all moved from different banks to one bank because a single reason. Their mobile app was significantly better. And we're all like high tech and what's not, so they got business, I think like maybe in the millions, just because, only from my like close circle, just because they had better mobile app. Right? So features are important and features are money, and this is what we all get paid for. And there is like, maybe you remember that? When you had your Nokia or Motorola in the early days, and for some weird reason you wanted to update something in it which you wasn't even supposed to do, and you just, oh, there is a new model, it has Snake, I will buy a new phone. Remember those days? And then we were like, oh, you remember the data cable for your phone, which was not your charging cable? And it actually didn't come with the phone, and you went to a store and bought a data cable because you wanted to, what? Export your contacts? But again, here's a phone with a snake, I'm going to buy a new phone. And then we got a little bit better, obviously, and then we got like, okay, there is an update, and I will download it, and today it's like, whoop, I wake up this morning and I have a new version of the app on my phone. Right? So we obviously made a very big progress in this area. And how much Nokia was? $100? How much is the iPhone? $1,000?
Too much.
Too much, way too much. But we still pay because we can now get software updates. So another very, very important reason for software updates are security vulnerabilities, right? And that's a quote that says, as every company becomes a software company, security vulnerabilities are the new oil spills. That's like the biggest problem that we face now. And anyone remembers Meltdown and Spectre? That was like what, beginning of last year, almost 2 years. Meltdown was the big news because it was easily exploitable, but actually the Spectre is the bad guy there. Because Meltdown was patched, fixed, and everybody forgot about it. Spectre, a year later, February this year, was actually proven to be impossible to mitigate. The vulnerability itself, right? And why? Because it's not an exploit. Spectre is a vulnerability that allows a certain class of exploits. And those exploits are based on learning the patterns of memory access in applications. So if I can learn how memory is accessed in certain class of applications, I can do like all kind of stuff and then access the protected areas of memory. Now, what it means now is that if someone writes code and does it the right way, the same way as everybody else, by doing best practices and patterns, their code is actually up to be exploited because there is a lot of information to gather on how it works. And there is literally no fix. And what it means is that the only way to deal with this class of exploits are what we call zero-day exploits. It means that we learn about them, And in the second we learn about them, our software is in jeopardy. And the only way now to protect ourselves is to release a software update that will fix it. So those are the two reasons. We want to get features out to the market to beat our competitors, and we want to protect ourselves against 0 days when you're building this. And let's look at how it is actually done. So this is one of the most important researches in the DevOps world that is done annually by what is used to call the DevOps Research A, and keep forgetting what DORA stands for. No, I don't remember. DORA, it doesn't really matter because they don't exist anymore. Google Cloud bought them and now they are part of Google Cloud, although the next research is around the corner. I don't know, I think it's in weeks about to be released, but today we still have the old one, and you should take a look at it. It's a serious research. They're talking about 30,000 people who did the research, and they asked them, they separated them into 3 groups by their responses, and it's 3.5. In previous years, it was 3 groups: the low performance, the medium performance, and the high performance. And then they decided, well, there are people who are better than high performance, let's dedicate them an elite group. So now there are kind of 4 groups. And here's the interesting part. Those people, the elite, actually know how to release updates fast. And you can see that they do on-demand multiple deploys per day, and that obviously means that they can be the first to get their features in the market, and they can be the first to mitigate the next Spectre-based or any other type of exploit, or zero-day exploit. So, my name is Baruch. I'm developer advocate, head of developer relations in JFrog, but also chief sticker officer, because stickers are fun, almost as speaking. There are a bunch of stickers over that table. There are also t-shirts, and those t-shirts are from JFrog to you. I'm not taking them back, so feel free to grab one or a couple for your colleague. And if not, I guess a lot of dentists will have those t-shirts in the next future. Right, so yeah, no, feel free. I'm AJ Baruch on Twitter. I keep this slide a little bit less, so you will see how entertaining and smart I am, and by now you know you should follow me on Twitter. So now that's a good time, AJ Baruch on Twitter. If you're still not convinced, conveniently my Twitter handle is on each and every slide. So you can do it later. Yeah, a disclaimer. This is an amazing diagram from an amazing book, The Culture Map. And obviously, speaking about different cultures of different countries, you can see that the most emotionally expensive and confrontational are Israeli and Russians. I'm from both. So it's more of a California thing, this kind of disclaimer, but still, if I offend anyone, I'm not going to apologize. I'm probably going to shout at you that I'm right and you are whatever I just said about you. So yeah, no? Sorry about that. Right, this is the most important slide of this presentation. I prepared a special page for this talk at jeffrog.com/show notes. You go there, you will see the meetup, and on this slide, on this page, the slides are already there. The video, if I did the recording right, will be there tonight if hotel Wi-Fi allows me, and I hope it will. All the links are there. Everything that I'm going to talk about, all the incidents that I'm going to mention, everything is there. Comments, ratings, and a small raffle to thank you for being there. Here, it's an Amazon Echo Dot, which you have a high chance to win. So go ahead and participate in that as well. Right now, as I mentioned, on the bottom of every slide, there is my Twitter handle, hashtags for this meetup. So when you do praise me on Twitter, don't forget those. And the most important, the link to those slides, to this page, so you will be able to get it later. Right, so I guess, I hope I made a point that we need to update faster. And now, let's see how it actually works for people who actually tried it. Java tried it. Mark Reinhold had Java platform, whatever, the main guy in all the Java ecosystem wanted to move faster. 2 years ago, he published a blog post about how now Java is going to get to 6 months releases instead of 1.5 years. And everybody like, yay! 2019, June, the State of Developer Ecosystem 2019 is published by JetBrains. 7,000 people, a good representative sample. How are Java fast updates doing? 83% are still on the same version of Java that was public when Mark Reynolds announced that they're going to release faster. I mean, what gives? We just spoke about how important it is to release faster. We just spoke about how users should be passionate and want the new updates. Why it doesn't work? To understand why it doesn't work, we need to understand how we update software. So let's talk about that. I have no idea why this slide goes from right to left. Might be some Israeli thing, but it is. Sorry about that. Okay, so update is available. Now we need to decide, do we want it? Is there enough features that we are interested in? If there are not enough features for us to bother, then we'll just say, no, we won't update. And that might be one of the reasons that no one updates the new Java version, because there are not enough good features, but that's not the case. New Java updates, Java 9, Java 10, Java 11, have a lot of candies that developers would love to get. So that's not that. Let's say we do want it. The next question is, are there any high risks? And obviously, if there are no high risks and I want it, I'm going to update it. This is what we do with what? I don't know, with a Facebook app on our phone. Because, okay, let's update it. Worst, or Netflix app, and the worst case it doesn't work, we're going to go and watch movies on Hulu while they fix it, right? No high risks. If there are high risks, and this is where, well, we have production servers running Java, serving our customers, it's a hell of high risk. The next question would be, do we trust the update? Can we be sure that there are no significant bugs that we can actually go and do the update? If the answer is yes, that's good enough, we will update. And the examples for that, well, I don't even know. Well, you think about something that a vendor that you fully rely on, if they say, here's an update, and just take it. I would say JFrog, but you probably won't believe me. That's fine. Okay, so if we don't trust this update, the next question is, can we verify it? If there is no way we can verify it, then we will just want update it. Because we have a version that works, it might not have some goodies, but at least it works. If we can verify it, then we will go through this time-consuming client, what it's called, acceptance tests, right? That can run for a month, and eventually we will update. So what happened with Java? Why no one updates to Java to every half a year for a new version? Because they get into this, let's see, where was it here? They get to this, there is a risk, we don't trust, we want to verify, and then they go like, okay, we need 6 months to verify that all our applications work. In 6 months, there will be a new version of Java. So how about no? Right? So this is the cycle, and obviously this cycle is very, very bad for Java, very, very bad for Oracle, and I guess the only way to change it is doing one of two things. It's either make it more valuable, so we will be ready to spend this time, or build more trust. Right, so make it more valuable, it's like bringing more features to the table. It's like, okay, let's make it so good that everybody will want to take it despite the risks. So we have this trade-off of features that we really want and acceptance test costs. This is the trade-off. Can we cheat the system? Can we trick the system? Can we somehow make this equation work? Well, we can. We can do something like that. Update is available. Do we want it? No one really asks you because auto-update is turned on. Well, this will work for anything which doesn't have high risks. And that probably includes your browser. Anyone knows which version of browser they're running now? Right? Twitter app in your browser. When you go to twitter.com, you have no idea what version it runs. Twitter app on your smartphone, because the update it turns on. How about the operating system of your smartphone? Ah, here you know. Here you know it because there is no auto update. It's like, you have a new version of your operating system. Do you want to install it? And you're like, hell no. Unless there are features that you really want. Right? So here we go back. We can do this auto update stuff only for things that are not high risk. Because if you are trying to do auto updates for things which there are high risks, what could possibly go wrong? So let's talk about that. I start with my favorite personal story. So I have this amazing Google Wi-Fi system. It was called OnHub when I bought it. It's like a very smart router. It's awesome in any way. And it's also a self-improving system. Self-improving system is a marketing way to say it has over-the-air automatic updates. Once in a while, I get an email, your router was updated, here are the new features, enjoy it. Which is great, that's one of the reasons I bought it. I was on a business trip, but it was, I think 2 years ago, I have the date on my next slide. And my wife calls me and she's like, I came home and the kids are sitting in the dark. And we had like a power outage or something? And she's like, no, the internet is down. And I'm like, what? And she's like, they were shouting, Alexa, turn on the lights, and nothing happened. So they're just sitting in the dark. They don't know where the switches are. So anyway, I said, well, okay, internet outage, that happens, but then hours pass, and it's not coming back. And she calls our provider, and they're like, no, we're fine. And then I get an email. And that was here, February 23, 2017. Our sincere apologies for our last incident. We pushed an update, and it accidentally reverted your router to a factory settings, did a full reset. Now what? They cannot fix it. They cannot send an over-the-air update that will fix it because the router now is not connected to the internet. So the best they can do is send me an email and ask to reconfigure the router. Now the problem is that to get an email I need an internet. So that wasn't a problem because I was away, so I was on my 4G or some other Wi-Fi. But yeah, that's an interesting problem to have, or not so much. And here we go into those patterns and anti-patterns. And I think that the first pattern that we can learn from this incident is local rollback. And we have a problem. Update went catastrophically wrong, and the over-the-air patch cannot reach the device. And what we should do is actually have a previous version on the device so we can roll to it if something went wrong. Next. Well, yeah, before we go to next. So that was obviously an example of Internet of Things, right? That was a router, which is kind of somewhere in not the tiny devices, but kind of a device. But I would argue that, you know what, everything is Internet of Things. Our servers that we run Kubernetes and what's not are things. And it is an Internet of Things of different scale. And we will go to talk in detail of differences between different things and how it actually affects our approach to continuous updates. But if we're talking about Internet of Things, let's talk about auto-updating the cars. That's a great topic. What can go wrong here, right? Well, here we go. That's super fresh. That's like June, 2 months ago. A Jaguar I-Pace, which is an amazing car, recalled because they needed to update the software. That's like 1995 with your phone, right? When you had to go to a lab, if there was a bug in the software to fix it. We are 2019, and this literally what happened. And this is outright ridiculous because over-the-air software updates should be trivial, especially in this industry when they have a very nice example that we're going to discuss next. So yeah, physical recalls are extremely costly. They can wipe out the entire revenue from this car just by the organization of this recall. And more so, you cannot force a recall. If you cannot push software update, that has to do with regenerative braking, right? That's a problem with brakes of the car. And you cannot force an update. People will come to this recall, if at all, when they wanted to. And a letter on the red paper won't make them come. So yeah, how do you do it? Well, implement over-the-air updates, preferably continuous updates. Now, what's the difference between continuous over-the-air updates and normal over-the-air updates? They are the same but better. And I will give an example of how they are better on Tesla. Spoke about the great and shiny example of automotive industry and over-the-air updates. There is a phenomenon with Tesla. Anyone has Tesla? No, okay, so I'll tell you. Phantom braking. Phantom braking is extremely annoying. You drive on a highway on autopilot, there are no cars, and then boom, it slams the brakes. This is so annoying. And it has to do with how that there was a shadow of a bird, and they figured out it's a pedestrian on the highway, so they slam the brakes. And people speak about it, right? There are literally hundreds of posts all over the internet. People are annoyed with that. And I heard a rumor, I didn't get this update yet, that it's actually fixed in the latest update. And you know why I didn't get this update yet? This contains minor and suburban bug fixes. You know why I didn't get it? Because they took their time working on chess. So I can play chess when the car is charging. Updates are great. You have to make them as frequent as possible, because in batch updates that I receive every 2 weeks at most, important features wait for non-important features. But if you do a continuous update, they could push the fix for phantom braking as it is ready. They don't need to wait for the other guys to finish writing the algorithm that play chess with me. So this is why smaller updates, more frequent updates, are obviously better. And again, going back to Dora report, we as an industry know how to do it. And I bet each and every one of you can name at least 10 companies that do deployments multiple times a day. This is exactly how it's done. It's not rocket science in 2008. Talking about automatic updates. Here we go. Here is a device that automatic updates are turned on. That's true for Android in this example, and it's true for iPhones as well. And you're like, hey, here's the industry that gets this thing and understands why automatic updates are important and how they actually work. So let's talk about that. That's a nice game, Noob's Adventure. And I think we call it Noob because the guy who wrote it was actually a complete noob in game development, and that was his first game. I mean, I have all the respect. He did a great job, and he wrote a lot about his experience, and this is from there. So he's great, but this is why it's called Noob. And one of the things that he explains in his series of blog posts about this experience of writing game is that. So he created a new feature which has to do with in-game monetization, right? That you can buy features and what's not. And he prepared this update. He actually tested it thoroughly. And so he obviously used some templating engine that used the $sign there for templates, and he tested against Apple staging servers. And it's an API that you can call that won't actually charge you for buying something or whatever. And everything was great, but turns out that a part of Apple's production servers actually returned a different results for the same query, which included the $sign for a cost that he was actually querying, and it obviously fucked up all his templating, and there was a bug. Now, obviously, that's not even close his fault, right? He actually tested it through exactly the way that Apple instructed them to test him, and more so, in production, it was completely random. It was depending on which of the servers on Apple side the query hits. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So so some users suffer crashes, and it took time to understand what went wrong because it was completely inconsistent. For non-dollar countries, it just never happened. But even in the US and Canada, it sometimes happened and sometimes not. And the only way he can learn about it was from the feedback from his users, which usually came with 1-star rating and something like, fuck off, this shit doesn't work. Which obviously didn't make him happy. And he was like contacting them, yeah, but what exactly didn't work, and depends on their mood, they might collaborate or not. So it was obviously painful and took a lot of time. Eventually, he found the problem. And he found the problem, he fixed the problem. Now what? Now, there is no way in the glamorous industry of mobile phones to push an update to your app immediately. They run it through their reviews. Apple review folks don't work on weekend because it's weekend. So if you have a catastrophic problem on Friday, the first chance you get to fix it for your customers, for your users, will be Monday. There is an expedited review, still not on weekends. Come on, people. So, and then you go like, yeah, but we just spoke about it. What about like rollbacks? What about just installing previous version? How hard can it be? Well, there is no such facility on Google Play or App Store, Apple Store, to have a previous version be rolled back. Although it was already reviewed, and it is good, and it is working, all you need from them is keep it aside for me, so I can do like a flip and fix it for the people who suffered. No. There is no such feature in the mobile world. Right? What he could do is, first of all, canary release. And both platforms actually support canary release. And canary is about fixing the problem of releasing the bug affects all the users. So let's release to a small number of users first and observe how it works. If a problem occurs, we can stop the rollout and revert or update the affected users. Obviously, he would mitigate the scope of the problem by doing that. What else he can do is implement some kind of observability, right? He learn about the crash from angry reviews. That's not how you want to get feedback when something went wrong, right? I mean, in the early days, we experienced that. When people were complaining, your soft is down, and the first time we heard about it was on Twitter. Well, that wasn't fun. And it served with, some problems are hard to trace relying on user feedback only, and then it served with tracing, monitoring, and logging. Again, in our industry, it's kind of, we know what to do. Now, rollbacks, we spoke about it. Fix might take a time, user suffers in the meanwhile. Implement a rollback, the ability to deploy previous version without delay. The problem here was he's not controlling the environment of the deployment, so he cannot implement a rollback. And then what? The solution that a lot of developers do, and serious shops usually, he wouldn't do it anyway, are feature flags. Rollbacks are not always supported by the deployment of the platform. Embed 2 versions of the features in the app itself and trigger them with an API call. So what you could do is programmatically block the ability to purchase once he discovered by using canary release and observability that there is a bug in production. And then, this button just won't appear for the users that were affected by the canary. Right? You can imagine that this is obviously expensive to implement, and that's why I mentioned that the one guy that does this game for fun probably won't invest to it, but obviously serious shops do that, and this is how it works. So, okay, by now you should be pretty upset with me, because how many of you are in IoT, car industry, mobile? Exactly, right? So why the hell I'm wasting your time here? Now, if you think that those problems are not in your domain, I have some news for you. Their work is much harder than yours, because you control, as someone who deploys to your servers or your cloud or your environment, you control the availability of the target. You know when your servers are online. They don't. You control the state of the target. You can decide that during that you'll do the update, and then you will ramp up the requests again. They don't have this luxury. They don't have no idea what's going on the edge devices. You control the version of the target. When you do the update, you know exactly from which version to which version you were going to update. They don't have this luxury. They might have someone who didn't touch this up for 3 years and now wants the latest version. That's a completely different scenario for update than someone that is in the latest update and now wants to get one. And you know what? You have access to the target. If something goes wrong, you SSH into the server and you check what the hell is going on. They had to rely on the fuck you in the reviews to figure out what's going on. Right? So their life is much more reasonable than yours. And if you don't do what we just spoke about, you have no excuse. But you know what? Let's talk about server-side. Let's talk about server-side. This one is a little bit old. This is August 2012. But this is epic. I think you might heard about it. A company that is called Knight Capital, who by then, when it happened, was, I think, one of top 3 biggest traders in New York Stock Exchange with 400 million in assets, did a software update. So they developed a new trading system that reused some old APIs that already existed, just because the old APIs already existed. So why not? Okay, that was enough. Updating, yeah. That was a software update.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's probably like 8 p.m. go home. Yeah.
warning him about that. Shut off last night.
Yeah, no, I can go without the slides. So, all right, so I literally can go without the slides. Oh, here we go. So, yeah, so then we use the whole APIs. And then they did the update. And for some reason, one of the 8 servers wasn't updated. And they have a round robin that, you know, like a load balancing. So some clients send completely new requests to an old code on one of the machines. And they started to see some very weird behavior. So basically, instead of buy this, sell, and all kind of weird stuff. Obviously, because there was like they triggered some completely different functionality than they expect. And the first thing they did was what? Stopping all the updated machines. And now all the requests went to this single not updated server. And in 45 minutes, they lost $440 million. Now, the problem is, it took 45 minutes because they had no idea what's going on. They had no monitoring, no alerting, no debugging. They actually had real-time debugging on a fast trading system. So they bleed millions of dollars per minute, and they like literally try to debug it in production. I'm shivering at thinking about it, right? I've been on outages when we had, you know, to do something time-consuming and we know that our services are down. This is nothing compared to losing millions of dollars every minute and trying to fix something in flight. This is terrifying. And here again, I mean, there is, well, although it was 7 years ago, but still, even there's no reason for not having automated deployment, right? People suck at repetitive tasks. Don't let them do repetitive tasks. Automate and let the machines, because that's pretty much the only thing that the machines are good at. So let them do it. Frequent updates. This update was first in many years of their systems. Because you know why, it works, don't touch. But the problem is that you forget how it's done. You don't have the muscle memory. If you update frequently, you develop skill and habit, and you just do it like you did every day. State awareness. Those are your servers. You should know what's going on. You should know how all the APIs behave. If you want to override them, make sure that there is no state left. And if there is, know how it works. Know and consider target state when updating. And also, if you decide to revert, reverting the state is also important. Okay, here's another one. This guy, Matthew Prince, he's an SEO of Cloudflare. What was it? June 24th, they had an outage, Cloudflare, which was a complete complete blame of Verizon, right? So it was Verizon's fault, 100%. And and they took Cloudflare down. Obviously, Cloudflare got some hate because of that. And then he releases this tweet. July 3rd, what it was, June 23rd, July 3rd, 9 days after, they go down by themselves. The first comment of the entire internet was, well, this time it wasn't Verizon's fault. So I guess real life pattern, you shame someone publicly, week later shit happens to you. The solution is, don't do that. But the reason I'm talking about that is, let's talk about their second failure, which was their fault. So what happened is, they deployed a simple misconfigured rule. A single misconfigured rule, and this rule had a regular expression that managed to spike the CPUs to 100%. I think that's another proof that if this world is going to end soon, it won't be global warming, like alien invasion and what's not. It will be like just wrong writing somewhere. For now, it's like testing, and they managed to take down Cloudflare. So yeah, that was a very nice touch. This was on their status page, and that was true. And I guess again, the patterns are counter releases. You make a change into your file for configuration. Don't dump it on entire region Earth, right? And we saw that already. Try it somewhere. It's like, I remember my mom, when she was teaching me how to do laundry, she said, this is the detergent. You try it on a small part of your fabric when no one sees. This is a kind of a release. Do it for your servers as well. And that's a company that had the audacity to shame someone else because of an outage. I guess my favorite of all that is MoviePass. MoviePass, and that's also very fresh. That's like now. MoviePass has shut down for several weeks to update its app.
You might be right.
Yeah, I mean, the pattern is zero downtime updates, which is the opposite of down for weeks for an update. And you will probably lose all your users if you shut down for 5 weeks and counting. It's still down now to perform an update. And probably what you do instead is zero downtime over there, small and frequent continuous updates, and then you won't be down for 5 weeks and won't lose all your customers, I guess. So this is where we come to actually what continuous updates are. And I will just summarize all the patterns, which is about that. Right, so it's something that is done frequently, it's done automatically, it's tested. We do counter releases instead, in case our tests are not enough. They are not. We are aware of the state of whatever we are updating, and obviously we, the developers for server side, are the more privileged. We control the state. The IoT folks and the automated folks, and they have much harder job. Observability. It will be nice if you know that something went wrong before people start complaining on Twitter. This is how you do it. And local rollbacks. Now this is kind of, the bonus point, because this is really hard to achieve. You need hardware to support it. You need automatic observability and actions. Now, you lost the control of your device. You cannot do nothing. Your machine should be smart enough to realize that something went wrong and successfully roll back the local rollback, the local software. This is hard. All the rest is an industry standard by now. There is no reason for not doing that. So what we want to get eventually in this diagram, after it is available, do we want it? Well, no one asks us. It is automatic. Are there any hard risks? even if there are hard releases, our software should be trusted. And then everybody are fine. Because even if there is a problem, it will be rolled back, mitigated, we probably won't suffer for it, it will be updated immediately. On those terms, go ahead, update our sheet. Suddenly we're fine with that. And if you do what we spoke about, you can probably get your customers and your users to agree for automatic update, which you want to do to earn more money and not be vulnerable for vulnerabilities, right? So our goal to transition from bulk and rare software updates to extremely tiny and extremely frequent software updates. So tiny and so frequent that they prove and that they provide an illustration of software flowing from development to the target. It's almost like liquid software. And this is what we call it. We call this vision of continuous update liquid software, and we wrote a book about it. Two of co-founders of JFrog, Fred Simon and Yoav Landman, and yours truly, wrote a book about all what we spoke about, with all those patterns and more, and with actual practical advice on stuff like how do you update when you need to change state of your, of your servers and databases and schemas and microservices. A lot of good advice there. Obviously, all the links are jeffrog.com/show notes, but it's actually liquidsoftware.com. Are there corner cases? They are, obviously. And that's kind of the diagram that shows you when you don't want automatic updates, when you don't want continuous updates, and you remember this car that's running off the cliff, that's probably one of them. So we convinced that 90% of software should be liquid and should be implement automatic software. There are a couple of areas when you really want to avoid updates, or there is no way to automate updates, that will be your 10% of manual updates. I guess like software that runs on the machines in surgery probably shouldn't be updated during the surgery, right? I used to give the example of planes that got updated mid-air, and then I thought about it, and then I thought like, you know what? Sometimes I do want that to happen. Think about the vulnerability, a hacker that can take over the plane in flight. Wouldn't it be nice if we can disable this vulnerability also in flight? Well, there is nice things to think about. Well, let's first figure software updates on the ground. Stop killing people because of software, and then we will go to updates in flight. No names mentioned. But they're all horrible, frankly. So yeah, there are corner cases, but 90% should be really. And with that, my name is Baruch. I'm Baruch on Twitter. This is Triangle DevOps. I don't know if you do have this hash code. If you don't, now you do. You're welcome. And liquid software. There is a hashtag for that. And you go to show notes for everything. With that, I have more questions. Thank you very much.
So you said rollbacks are hard, so how do you accomplish it?
So local rollbacks are hard. Those corner cases that you lost connection to your device and there is absolutely no way you can reconnect to that. And you need to remember this is a very rare use case. It almost never happens if you control your runtime. So for example, if you have a server that you can physically connect and check what's going on, so that's not an issue. Right? In those rare cases that you really don't have access to, I'll give you an example, solar arrays in deserts, right? There is software running there. There is literally no way you can get to this array in less than 3 days. And if you lose production now, that's a lot of money, right? Those devices are obviously the hardware there is absolutely insane. It stands any temperature and tank running over it because obviously there is a war there, it's desert. But also they have this ability to have 2 versions installed. Right? So you install a new version, it's like blue-green deployment, you install a second version and then you test it and then you flip the switch. And this switch can be flipped automatically based on the metrics that are gathered, the telemetry that is gathered on the device itself. And the slightest signs that anything is wrong, it will be flipped automatically, and then we will dump all the logs and we will examine and we will check what's going on. So, but yeah, this is hard. But that's the only hard thing throughout all the lists that I mentioned. Everything else we know how to do today, and if I go through you one by one, I guess the majority of you will know how to do the majority of the things that we spoke about. Yes?
So, from your the flowcharts that talk about updates and people still being on Java 8.
Yeah.
I think that there's at least one thing missing, right? Which is what it's not that you're worried about a bug, it's you're worried that by design, they have made breaking changes. Right? Java 8 to Java 9 made breaking changes by design.
Yes.
Right? Which is why, for instance, Jenkins was broken for years on past Java 8.
Okay.
Right? So, how do you recommend dealing with that case?
So I'll tell you what, this is great. This is great, and I think I need to add it to the slide somewhere, because it comes a lot. People ask, yeah, of course you can do those changes when they are compatible, and it will be great, especially if they're compatible both ways, because you need to do the role, but what happens if they are not? And I guess this is where you nailed that Java example is not a very good one, because in the liquid software concept, we consider major versions as a different app. And then updates are not applicable. Instead, we install it as a new app, and then it lives through the life cycle of updates within this new app. We obviously will want to make it easier, the migration, but it probably will be manual anyway, because it requires changes on the client that we don't control and cannot make. But I guess that's how you render my Java example completely invalid. Yeah. Good catch. I'll try it on another group. If they keep catching there, I need to remove. Yes.
Well, on feature flags, there are a lot of companies like Split.io, Luckily, that can do that. But
Yeah.
what are your recommendations? A lot of older shops do our own feature flags.
Yeah.
What
So I consider feature flag not as a declared feature, but instead just a design pattern, right? I mean, what it means for me when I say feature flag, you understand what I mean. How you do it is less the topic of this conversation, just because there are tons of different use cases on how it is done. I bet none of those companies that, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think none of those vendors actually know how to do feature flags on mobile, for example. I don't know, I didn't check, they are so different that I don't expect them to do that. And if I'm wrong, I apologize, maybe they do. But feature flag for me means exactly that you can trigger on and off features in your remote application if it doesn't look right within your canary release test case. And again, all should always be with the canary, because you try to minimize the damage as much as possible. Yeah.
Related to canaries, do you have opinions about staging environments or dev, test?
Yeah, I have an opinion about staging environment. There is, if you manage to make your staging environment exact copy of the production environment, there are 3 possible options. First, you are so tiny, I mean, it's laughable. Second, you spend so much time on it that you probably ate all the profit from your update. And third, you're lying. In big and you know, in applications at scale, there is no way you can simulate production with the right loads, with the right scale in staging, unless that's your goal in life. And then you can do it, but you just wasted tons of money and effort and time. And I guess that's where our industry is going, because everything becomes bigger, obviously. And I think the canary releases now are acceptable alternative, which is cheaper on us, and we can always find the suckers that want the features first. And I'm one of them, so it's not offensive. I'm talking about myself, right? You can find all those that turn on the canary channel because they want this feature 2 days before anyone else, right? And that includes crazy stuff like, I want the least tested software in my car. Yes, because I have a new game. Yes, I want it. That's me, right? So we will always find those people, and it's a contract that they understand, they realize, and it actually replaces trying to mimic your production environment extremely well.
So would you have a single, just prod, no dev too?
No, you can have, you should have pipelines.
Okay.
You should have different environments. But you need to realize that what you're calling staging is not a replication of your production environment, is as close as you can get within a reasonable amount of effort and money. And then you do canary because you know that staging is not working.
So then why even have a stage?
Well, because you still don't want to ruin the experience for your canary users. Canary users is not like thugs those suckers who are going to test on them. It's not that. Canary users are, thank you very much, we did the most that we could to test everything, and we hope that it works. It's not like, well, this is what we wrote half an hour ago, now it's in production, enjoy. No, that's not the idea. Well, we might have written half an hour ago, but at least it went through the entire pipeline of all the automatic testings that we can do. This is fine, but that's not the meaning. Does that make sense? Okay, so there are no further questions. Thank you very much.